Theo's 12th birthday was supposed to be simple. Something warm, something soft, something safe. Just a small dinner with family at my restaurant, Harper's Dock, a wooden lakeside place that smells like fresh bread and old memories. Balloons touched the ceiling, candles flickered on the red checkered tables, and the lake breeze carried laughter inside through the half-open windows. I had spent the entire day planning it, decorating it, and imagining the smile on my son's face when he finally walked in. But when the door swung open and Theo stepped into the dining room, the smile I had pictured never came. Instead, everything inside me froze. There, beneath the soft glow of the birthday candles, was a bruise darkening under his right eye, fresh, swollen. And trying desperately to hide behind the way he tilted his head, for a moment the whole room went silent, not because the music stopped or the chatter faded, but because my heart did. My breath caught in my throat like a stone. It felt like the floor under my feet had shifted. I had spent 12 years trying to protect this boy from every harsh corner of the world, and yet here he was, standing in front of me with hurt on his face that I didn't recognize. I took a step toward him. "Theo, sweetheart, what happened?" He avoided my eyes. That was my first answer. He always looked at me when he told the truth, always. This time he stared at the floor, hands twisting behind his back, shoulders tightening with the kind of tension a child shouldn't know. My sister, Marilyn, stood near the counter, sipping her wine like she was watching a television show instead of my son's birthday. Her son, her lanky, sharp-shouldered 15-year-old Bryce, leaned against the wall behind her. His face was blank, but his eyes, there was something smug there, something cold, something that tightened a strange knot in my chest. I looked from him to Theo again. "Honey, did you fall? Did you bump into something?" Theo swallowed. "Yeah, just fell. A lie, a small, trembling 12-year-old lie, and nothing breaks a mother faster than a lie told out of fear." I bent down, gently placing my hand on his cheek. He flinched, not from pain, but from being exposed. I saw it happen, a flash in his eyes like he wished he could disappear. That's when the guilt hit me. Had I been working too much? Had I been too caught up in the restaurant, the bills, the customers, the noise, and everything else that I didn't notice something happening to him? Children don't get bruises like that from falling. Not that shape. Not that color, not on their birthday. I straightened up and glanced back at Marilyn. She lifted an eyebrow like I was being dramatic. Bryce looked away, but too quickly, like someone who had just checked a crime scene before anyone else noticed. The candles flickered. People started singing, off-key and cheerful and painfully unaware. I tried to smile, tried to make the moment normal, but my mind was spinning. And every time Theo looked up at me, then down again, I felt a little more certain. Something happened. Something bigger than he was willing to say in front of everyone. After the birthday song, after the cake, after people clapped and cheered, Theo blew out his candles with a wish I could almost see sitting on his lips. I hoped, God, I hoped it wasn't a wish for safety. When the plates were being cleared and guests were drifting toward the exit, I quietly wrapped an arm around Theo's shoulder. "Come with me," I whispered. He nodded, small and silent, and followed me through the back hallway. I took him into my office, shut the door behind us, and knelt down so we were eye to eye. "Theo," I said softly, "please don't lie to me. I'm your mother. Whatever happened, I need to know. Did someone hit you?" His lips trembled, his breath hitched. He wasn't ready to speak, but he was too tired to lie anymore. His silence told me more than his words ever could. And then, so quietly I almost didn't hear it, he whispered, "It was nothing, Mom. It was just stupid stuff." "Stupid stuff doesn't leave bruises," I said. He wiped his nose with the back of his hand. "Please don't be mad." Mad? I wasn't mad. I was terrified. I reached out, pulling him into my arms. He pressed his forehead against my shoulder, and for a moment it felt like I was holding the little boy he used to be. The boy who thought I could protect him from everything, but I had failed somewhere, and I didn't know when. I heard footsteps approaching the office and then a knock on the door. Marilyn's voice seeped through. "Everything okay in there? Your guests are waiting to say goodbye." I didn't answer. Theo's shoulders stiffened. That told me everything. Something about Marilyn made him nervous. Something about her being so close to the truth. I took a slow breath. "Theo, did Bryce do this to you?" His silence stretched, heavy, painful, real. I heard his breath tremble. His fingers clenched the fabric of my sleeve, and that was enough. I didn't need a confession. I saw the truth sitting in his eyes like a shadow. When I opened the door, Marilyn was standing there with that same bored expression. But Bryce, he wouldn't look at me. His jaw tightened. His foot shifted. His shoulders squared. A bully's posture, a coward's guilt. And in that moment, something inside me, something protective, something fierce came alive. Because no one, absolutely no one, hurts my child and walks away clean. Not even family. Not anymore. I didn't sleep that night, not a second. The restaurant lights dimmed one by one, chairs flipped upside down on tables, and the birthday decorations drooped like tired confetti. But my mind stayed wide awake, replaying the look in Theo's eyes, the stiff way he froze when Bryce's name came up, the bruise that didn't match any I fell story. Theo slept in my bed, curled into my side like he used to do when he was 6 and afraid of thunderstorms. His breathing was uneven, the kind that tells a mother her child is pretending to be fine. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling anger move through my chest like something hot and alive. I kept asking myself the same thing over and over. When did I stop noticing what my son was going through? By sunrise, I made a promise to myself that settled deep in my bones. I was going to find out exactly what happened, and I was going to make sure it never happened again. When Theo woke up, he blinked hard like he wasn't sure where he was. Then he saw me beside him and instantly tucked himself deeper into the blankets. "Morning," I whispered. He didn't answer. He stared at the window at the early pink light stretching across the sky. "Do you want to talk about last night?" I asked softly. "No," he murmured. "Do you want pancakes?" He hesitated. "Yeah." I took that as a small victory. While I cooked breakfast, he sat at the kitchen island drawing circles on the counter with his finger. He kept glancing at his phone like he was expecting something or dreading it. When the phone buzzed, he jumped. I watched him closely. "Who is that?" "No one," he said too quickly, locking the phone and sliding it under his leg. Another lie. I set his plate in front of him and gently lifted his chin to check the bruise. It was darker today, turning purple at the edges. "Does it hurt?" I asked. "No, not really." Lie number 3, I didn't push, not yet. We ate in silence, or at least Theo did. I pretended to eat while watching him, memorizing every twitch, every shift in his expression. After breakfast, he asked if he could go to his room. I told him yes, but my mind stayed with him even when he walked away. When the house finally settled into a tense quiet, I picked up his phone from the counter. He hadn't taken it with him. Maybe on purpose, maybe by accident, either way it buzzed again. The notification preview froze me, a message from Bryce. My pulse hammered in my ears. I wasn't the type to invade Theo's privacy, but I wasn't the type to let my child get hurt either. So I opened the phone. The first thing I saw was a message bubble that made my stomach twist. "Don't tell her anything, or else. That was enough to make my blood run cold. My hands shook, but I kept scrolling. There were older messages, mean ones, taunting ones, threats disguised as jokes. And then pictures. Pictures of Theo's backpack emptied out on the school pavement. Pictures of Bryce holding something above his head while Theo reached for it. A video of Theo being shoved against a locker. And then the final blow, a screenshot of Bryce typing, "You're such a loser, even your mom can't help you." Something inside me broke right then. A mother can take many things, exhaustion, hardship, disappointments, but not this. Not her child being slowly crushed under someone else's cruelty. I heard footsteps behind me. Theo stood there, eyes wide, breath shallow. He saw the phone in my hand and froze like a deer caught in headlights. "Mom," he whispered. I didn't yell, I didn't raise my voice. I just stepped toward him and wrapped my arms around him so tightly he exhaled a shaky breath. "You're not in trouble," I whispered into his hair. "You're safe, you hear me, you're safe with me." He nodded, but his body trembled. After a minute, he pulled back and stared at the floor. I didn't want to make things worse. "Worse how?" I asked gently. He hesitated, then whispered, "He said if I told anyone he'd hurt you." That hit me harder than any bruise could. Bryce wasn't just bullying him. He was manipulating him, controlling him, using fear as a leash. And Marilyn, she either ignored it or worse, she knew. I took Theo's hands in mine. "No one, absolutely no one is going to hurt me, do you understand? And no one is going to hurt you again." He swallowed hard. "Promise?" "I promise." That promise settled into my bones like steel. By afternoon, I drove to Marilyn's house, not to fight, not to scream, but to look her in the eye. To see if she knew, to see if she was the kind of mother who ignored the monster she raised. She opened the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Jill, what a surprise." I stepped inside without waiting to be invited. "Where's Bryce?" "Why?" "We need to talk." Her jaw tightened. "If this is about last night, Theo tripped. Kids trip, you always overreact." I laughed once, a short, humorless exhale. "This time, I'm not overreacting." I pulled out my phone and played one of the videos. The color drained from her face. "That's not..." She stopped. She knew exactly what it was. But before she could form an excuse, Bryce came down the stairs, earbuds in, arrogant slouch on full display. When he saw me, his smirk faltered for a split second. Just enough to confirm everything. I turned to him. "We're going to have a conversation." He rolled his eyes. "Whatever, you hurt my child." He scoffed. "He's dramatic." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You don't get to touch him again, not at school, not outside. Not ever, because the next time you even look at him wrong, I will make sure every person who matters knows exactly what you've been doing. His jaw clenched. And trust me, I said calmly, I'm a lot scarier than you think. Marilyn muttered, Jill, you're being ridiculous. No, I said, turning back to her, I'm being a mother. I left the house without waiting for anyone to respond, but as I walked to my car, I felt it, a shift, a warning, this wasn't over, not even close. The drive home was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that weighs heavy on your chest, pressing down until it feels like the air itself is holding its breath. Theo sat in the backseat, staring out the window at the trees blurring past, fingers fidgeting with the edge of his sleeve. I wanted to speak, to break the silence with comforting words, but I wasn't sure anything I said would matter, not yet. When we arrived home, the house looked the same, normal, familiar, but I saw it differently now. Every corner seemed sharper, every shadow heavier. I carried Theo up the stairs to his room. The bruise on his cheek was still there, purple now deepening into black, a mark not just on his skin but on the life we had fought so hard to protect. I sat beside him on the bed, my hand brushing his hair back gently. Do you want to talk about what Bryce said? I asked softly. He shook his head, voice barely above a whisper. No, I just want it to be over. I understood. I wanted it to be over too, but over wasn't coming until Bryce learned that hurting my son had consequences, until my sister learned that protecting cruelty was no longer acceptable, until my parents understood that loyalty wasn't measured by appearances but by action. After a moment, Theo asked, Mom, will he get in trouble? Yes, I said, my voice steady though my heart pounded. He will, and anyone who stood by and let it happen, they will face the consequences too. His eyes met mine, wide and uncertain. I reached for his hands. I promise you, Theo, no one will hurt you again. He nodded slowly, resting his head against my shoulder. For the first time in days, his breathing evened out. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the next steps. I needed proof, concrete evidence beyond what I had on the phone. That meant school records, security footage from the hallway cameras, and eyewitness accounts. I had to build a case solid enough that no one, Bryce, my sister, or my parents could dismiss it. The following morning, I called the principal's office. I explained calmly but firmly that my son had been bullied and that I needed the security footage from the last week. There was hesitation on the other end. We take these matters seriously, the secretary said, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. We'll need a signed request from your son as well. I didn't flinch, I'd expected it, I'd been ready for it. Consider it done, I said, asking Theo to sign the forms later that afternoon. After hanging up, I grabbed my laptop and began writing everything down, the phone messages, the video screenshots, the timeline of events leading up to the birthday. Every detail mattered. Every small piece could make the difference. By mid-afternoon, Theo had signed the paperwork. We handed it to the school office together. He was nervous, his small hand gripping mine tightly, but there was a spark in his eyes. That was the spark of someone realizing they had a voice. When we returned home, I could feel the tension in the house shift slightly. Not from Mara or my parents, they were still distant, still blind to the storm, but from Theo. He carried himself a little taller, shoulders a little straighter. That alone was worth everything. That evening, I decided to take Theo to the lake. The water had always been a refuge for us, a place where the world's cruelty didn't follow. He skipped stones across the surface, each ripple carrying away some of the fear that had been weighing on him. I sat beside him, hands wrapped around my knees, watching his reflection in the water. Mom, he said after a while, voice tentative, do you think Bryce will stop now? I considered the question carefully. I don't know, I said honestly. But what I do know is that you're stronger than you realize and you're not alone anymore. You have me, and we're going to make sure nothing like this happens again. He nodded, eyes focused on the ripples he was creating. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sliver of hope. Back at home, I sat at the kitchen counter with Connie, mapping out the plan for Theo's safety. She had been unwavering in her support, her calm presence a lifeline during the chaos. We'll get the school on board, she said, and the cameras, the evidence, will make sure nothing is left to chance. I nodded, grateful beyond words. Connie wasn't family by blood, but she was family by choice, and sometimes that was stronger than blood. The next day, the school called. They had reviewed the footage. There was no denying what had happened. Bryce was caught on camera, pushing Theo against the locker, shoving him repeatedly while Mara's distant figure lingered nearby. The principal assured me they would take action immediately. When Theo heard, his relief was palpable. They saw it, Mom, he whispered. They know I'm not lying. No one's doubting you now, I told him, and no one ever will. That evening, I sent a text to Mara. I didn't yell, I didn't curse, I just wrote, "Your son hurt mine, you stood by. There will be consequences, prepare for what's coming." I hit send before second-guessing myself, and then I waited. Hours later, Mara called. I didn't answer. Instead, I focused on Theo, on his homework, on dinner, on laughter that wasn't forced. I let him play video games, read his favorite books, and finally he smiled. A true smile, free from fear. That night I held him as he fell asleep. The bruise on his cheek had faded slightly, but the memory of it would never fade from my mind. And that was okay, because while scars could heal, trust and the fight to protect it was eternal. I looked out the window at the calm lake, reflecting the moonlight. For the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of peace. We weren't out of the woods yet. Mara and Bryce weren't gone, and my parents still didn't understand. But I had Theo, I had the evidence. And most importantly, I had the certainty that I would never let anyone harm him again. Tomorrow, I would meet with the authorities. I would ensure Bryce faced the consequences. I would protect my son, and after that, I would begin the process of rebuilding. Not just the restaurant, not just our home, but the very foundation of Theo's childhood. One step at a time, one victory at a time, because this was our life now, our fight. And I would not back down. The morning light poured through the kitchen window, warm but sharp, highlighting the tension that still clung to the house like a heavy fog. Theo sat at the breakfast table, spooning cereal into his mouth slowly, eyes distant but calmer than they had been in weeks. He was safe for now, but I knew Mara's influence lingered even beyond the walls of our home. Connie arrived shortly after, carrying her usual aura of quiet confidence. "Morning," she said, setting down a cup of coffee for me. "How's our little hero?" Theo offered a small grin, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Better," he said. "I think I'm ready to face school again." I smiled, relief mingling with lingering worry. "We'll go together today," I said. "You don't have to be alone until this is all over." After breakfast, we gathered the evidence I had compiled, screenshots, video clips, the signed forms from the school, and a detailed timeline of incidents leading to the confrontation. I felt a flicker of determination rise in me. Mara had underestimated how far I would go to protect my son. My parents, always blind to the truth, would see soon enough that their favoritism couldn't hide her actions anymore. Connie and I drove Theo to school, the tension in the car thick but purposeful. He held my hand tightly in the back seat, a gesture that anchored me more than any strategy or evidence ever could. As we approached the school gates, I noticed the subtle shifts. The teacher's eyes meeting mine briefly, the whispers of students as Bryce passed by, the faint glances of other parents. The ripple of consequence had already begun. Inside the principal's office, I laid everything out. "This is the security footage," I said, holding my phone steady. "These are messages and witnesses, and here's the signed statement from my son." The principal, a stern woman with a reputation for fairness, leaned forward. "I appreciate your thoroughness," she said. "We take this seriously. This is more than just a playground scuffle, we'll act immediately." Theo's shoulders relaxed slightly. Relief flashed in his eyes, the first true relief since the birthday incident. "They're going to believe me, Mom," he whispered. "They already do," I said. "And no one will ever doubt you again." By the time we returned home, the house was unusually quiet. Mara and Eric hadn't appeared, and the absence was deafening. My parents were in the living room, pretending normalcy, but their eyes betrayed unease. They knew something had shifted. I could feel it. I called Theo into the living room, sitting him between my parents. "Your son has been through enough," I said, voice firm. "He's been hurt, betrayed, in silence for too long. Today that ends." Mom's hands trembled as she adjusted her apron. "Jillian, we just want peace," she said softly. "I've tried peace for years," I snapped, "and look where it got us. Theo's bruise, your loyalty to Mara, the lies that followed, it ends now. Theo's well-being is the priority, not appearances." Dad sighed, rubbing his temple. "You're being dramatic. This can be handled quietly. No need to escalate." I shook my head. "No, we escalate when a child is harmed and adults refuse to act. You'll stay out of it if you can't protect him. That's the choice." Theo looked at me, eyes wide but filled with courage. I placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone, ever again." The rest of the day passed with cautious steps. I monitored every interaction, aware that Mara could still attempt interference through phone calls or emails. But for the first time, I realized we had an advantage. The evidence was undeniable. Theo had a voice, and I was his shield. That evening, Connie and I worked on a plan to fortify Theo's position at school and within the community. We spoke to teachers, parents, and a few trusted friends. The ripple effect of Mara's actions would extend beyond the house and into the wider world, where accountability could not be ignored. Theo, meanwhile, found solace in small things, helping Connie organize paperwork, drawing by the window, and reading aloud from his favorite fantasy books. Each moment, however mundane, stitched a small piece of his confidence back together. He began speaking more, sharing thoughts on the future, on school projects, and even on the restaurant, his imagination already sketching ways he could contribute. Later, as night fell, I sat by the lake, the same place where he had skipped stones days ago. The reflection of the moon danced across the water, mirroring the flickers of hope in my heart. I thought about the long road ahead, the legal steps, Mara's potential retaliation, my parents' continued bias, but for the first time I felt prepared. Connie joined me silently, her presence a calm reinforcement. "He's strong," she said softly, "stronger than you realize." I nodded. "He has to be, and he will be. This isn't just about him surviving, he's going to thrive." We watched the water together, the gentle ripples a metaphor for the slow but inevitable change. Mara and her influence were still out there, but they no longer had dominion over our lives. Theo's bravery, our preparation, and our unyielding commitment to truth and justice had created a barrier no favoritism or manipulation could breach. That night, as Theo slept soundly in his room, I drafted letters and called lawyers. CPS had been notified, school authorities were fully engaged, and the evidence was irrefutable. The chain of accountability was set in motion, and there was no turning back. For Theo, the world was beginning to look like a place where he could belong without fear. And for me, the realization hit hard. I was no longer just his mother. I was his protector, his advocate, and the unwavering force ensuring his childhood would never again be tainted by betrayal. As the moonlight reflected off the lake and the house finally settled into a quiet rhythm, I allowed myself a moment of stillness. One day at a time, I reminded myself, one victory at a time, and tonight, Theo had won the first battle. The morning after the confrontation, the air in the house felt lighter but electric, charged with the anticipation of consequences yet to come. Theo, for the first time in weeks, walked down the hallway without glancing over his shoulder. His small frame, once tense and hunched from fear, now carried a quiet determination. I could see the spark returning to his eyes, the spark that had been dimmed by Mara's cruelty and the constant dismissal from my parents. Connie arrived early, as always, her presence a calming anchor. "Good morning," she said, setting down coffee and a plate of toast. "Ready to take the day by storm?" Theo managed a genuine grin this time. "I think I'm ready, Connie," he said, his voice stronger than yesterday. "I want to go to school and I want to help with the restaurant today." I felt a swell of pride. My son, who had been so quiet and fearful, was beginning to reclaim his life. "Then let's do it," I said. "But remember, we move carefully. Mara and Eric won't give up easily. They'll try to fight back in ways we haven't anticipated." Theo nodded solemnly, understanding more than his 12 years should. He had learned that life sometimes demanded courage, and courage could come in quiet, steadfast forms. We drove to the restaurant, Theo in the passenger seat, his backpack slung over one shoulder and Connie beside him, offering encouragement. The staff greeted us warmly, noticing the change in Theo's demeanor immediately. He carried himself differently, shoulders squared, eyes attentive, and a subtle confidence that was magnetic. Inside, I began the day's tasks with Connie, reviewing inventory, reorganizing schedules, and planning menus. But my attention frequently drifted to Theo, who moved around the kitchen with curiosity, observing the workflow, asking intelligent questions, and even assisting a few servers in organizing trays and utensils. He seemed to absorb the atmosphere, translating it into a quiet mastery of space and responsibility. Connie leaned toward me during a lull, whispering, "He's natural at this. You've raised a smart, capable boy." "I know," I said, my voice tinged with emotion, "but it's not just his intelligence. It's his resilience. He's been through so much and he's still standing. He's thriving despite the chaos Mara created." By mid-morning, the first calls arrived. School officials had contacted me, confirming that Tucker's behavior would be investigated fully and that necessary measures were being implemented to ensure Theo's safety. The validation gave me a sense of justice, though it did little to erase the anger simmering within me toward Mara and her parents. As Theo helped Connie organize the back office, I couldn't help but reflect on the long chain of events that had brought us to this point. The birthday party, the bruise, Mara's subtle manipulations, and the favoritism my parents displayed, it was all a tapestry of betrayal that had nearly stolen my son's confidence. But now, armed with evidence, allies, and determination, we had rewritten the narrative. Lunch brought a flurry of activity. Regulars arrived, filling the dining area with laughter and chatter. Theo moved between tables, observing, learning, and even suggesting minor improvements to service. Guests noticed the change, complimenting his attentiveness, which made my chest swell with pride. Amid the activity, a subtle tension lingered in the air, the knowledge that Mara could strike at any moment, using legal threats or manipulation to reclaim control. I reminded myself to stay vigilant. Every step we took needed precision. Every move required foresight. Protecting Theo meant preparing for every possible contingency. By early afternoon, I noticed Theo lingering near the windows, eyes on the lake outside. "Thinking about yesterday?" I asked softly. "About what?" he replied, though his gaze didn't waver from the water. "About Mara, about what happened to you." He sighed a long, slow exhale as if releasing a weight he had carried too long. "I feel better, stronger. I know now that I don't have to be scared of her or Tucker, not anymore." His words filled me with warmth, mingled with a resolve that hardened my own spirit. Later, a letter arrived at the restaurant, the handwriting unmistakably Mara's. I saw Theo glance at it, curiosity flickering across his face. I gently handed it to him. "Do you want me to open it?" Theo shook his head firm. "No, some things aren't worth reading, some things don't deserve attention." I nodded, understanding. Mara's attempt at reconciliation, her words of regret were meaningless now. Actions had consequences, and she had crossed a line that could never be erased by empty apologies. The rest of the day passed in a rhythm of small victories. Theo took on tasks with quiet confidence, learning the ebb and flow of restaurant operations and even offering suggestions that improved efficiency. Guests responded positively, some noticing the unique charm of a boy so young yet so perceptive. Connie and I reviewed the progress at day's end. "He's learning quickly," she said. "More than I expected. He's going to be incredible someday." "Yes," I replied, eyes on Theo as he helped clean up the last tables. "Not just incredible, strong, independent, and fearless. He's learned the value of trust, the importance of speaking up, and that we fight for what's right." As twilight descended, the lake glistened outside the windows, reflecting the soft lights of the restaurant. Theo wandered to the dock, skipping stones once more, but this time with purpose. He threw them with precision, each stone creating ripples that spread farther than before. Watching him, I realized those ripples were more than just water, they were symbols of change, courage, and new beginnings. Connie joined me by the dock, silent but supportive. "You've done something remarkable," she said softly. "You've protected him and given him the strength to rebuild his world." I smiled, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "We've done it together, but this is just the beginning. Theo has a future to claim, and I'll make sure he never feels powerless again." That night, as the restaurant closed and Theo rested at home, I sat alone by the lake, reflecting on the battles fought and victories won. Mara's shadow still lingered, my parents' favoritism remained a wound, but in Theo's courage I found hope and purpose. This was more than protection, it was a reclaiming of life, of trust, and of the future I had promised my son. The night air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of the lake, mingled with a sense of possibility. For the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to breathe freely, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, Theo and I would face them together, unbroken, unshaken, and stronger than ever. The following morning, the world felt quieter, almost fragile, as if it too understood the upheaval of the previous days. Theo had slept through the night without nightmares, a small but monumental victory. I watched him from the doorway, brushing his hair back, the bruise now fully healed, leaving only the memory of pain and betrayal. His small fingers traced the edge of the bedspread, a soft, almost imperceptible sign of habit, and I realized how much of his childhood had been overshadowed by fear and family politics. "Morning, Mom," he said, eyes clear and steady. "I had a good sleep." I smiled, stepping into the room. "Good, that's a start." My voice was gentle but carried the weight of everything left unsaid. "Today we keep moving forward together." We dressed quickly and headed to the restaurant. The drive was silent, but in that silence I sensed Theo's inner strength solidifying. He didn't fidget or glance nervously out the window. He simply sat, eyes forward, absorbing the rhythm of the town awakening. Every street lamp, every familiar sign along the way seemed to underscore that life continued, even when family had faltered. At Harper's Lakeside, the new sign glinted under the morning sun, Theo's Lakeside Kitchen. The letters were bold, gleaming, a beacon of a new beginning. Connie, already at the office, waved as we entered, her smile wide. "Good morning, Theo. Ready to take the reins today?" Theo's grin was bright, unburdened. "I think I am." For the next several hours, we immersed ourselves in the restaurant's rhythm. Theo learned quickly, and I found myself astonished at how naturally he absorbed the complexities of managing a team, organizing tasks, and even negotiating with vendors over phone calls. Each action, each confident decision reinforced the truth that resilience often outshines age. Connie leaned toward me during a brief pause. You know, he's not just learning, she said softly. He's thriving. I've never seen a kid this focused, this sure of himself. I nodded throat tight. It's not just learning, it's reclaiming. Mara tried to steal his confidence, his innocence, but he's taking it back piece by piece. By lunchtime, the restaurant was buzzing with energy. Regular patrons greeted Theo warmly, noting the subtle changes in his demeanor. He moved among them with ease, his voice steady as he explained menu items, engaged with guests, and even handled a minor complaint with tact beyond his years. Every smile he received was a reminder that strength and kindness could coexist, even in a world that sometimes felt cruel. Amid the bustle, a soft ping alerted me to an incoming email. It was from Mara, another letter, this one longer, a string of justifications, apologies, and excuses. I glanced at Theo, who met my eyes with a calm assurance. He didn't need the words read aloud. His hand found mine, a simple squeeze, signaling trust and understanding. Don't open it, Mom, he said. It's not for us, we know the truth. I folded the email without reading it, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. Theo was learning that not every confrontation required engagement. Strength was often knowing when to step back, to hold onto one's dignity, and to protect the life that mattered most. As the afternoon sun fell low, casting golden streaks across the kitchen, Theo began taking on small leadership tasks. He organized staff schedules, delegated responsibilities, and even suggested a few creative changes to the menu. His quiet voice carried authority, and the staff responded with respect and admiration. Connie watched from the sidelines, her expression a mix of pride and amazement. He's going to run this place better than anyone, she whispered. I nodded, though my mind wandered to Mara and her husband, Eric. Their threats still loomed in the background, a distant storm I had no intention of ignoring. But for now, our focus was clear: Theo's growth, his safety, and the restoration of trust in a space that had nearly been poisoned by ambition and cruelty. By early evening, the last of the dinner rush had passed. Guests lingered, some quietly complimenting Theo's leadership, others sharing small stories of their own children, reminding me that life, in its ordinary moments, could be a refuge from pain. I watched Theo move among them, confident, warm, and completely himself. After the staff had left and the restaurant settled into a quiet hum, I found Theo at the dock, skipping stones as the sunset painted the lake in hues of orange and purple. He paused, turning to me with a contemplative expression. Mom, he said, do you think things can really be normal again? I crouched beside him, my hand brushing the damp wood of the dock. Normal is different now, I said softly, but better, you're strong. You've faced fear, betrayal, and doubt, and you've come through. This is your new normal, and it's full of possibilities. Theo smiled, a small but radiant smile. I like it. The lake reflected the sky's colors, the water shimmering with movement, rippling outward with every stone Theo tossed. Watching him, I realized those ripples mirrored our lives. Every small action, every choice, expanding outward, shaping a future that no betrayal could undo. Later, as twilight settled over the town, I checked the security cameras one last time, ensuring all threats were documented and that Mara's attempts at manipulation could not reach us. The footage confirmed what we already knew: our actions were justified, our path forward clear. Connie joined me by the porch, bringing 2 cups of warm tea. We sat in silence for a few moments, watching the lake's surface, letting the day's victories settle into our hearts. You've done everything right, she said finally. Theo is safe, confident, and growing. The rest will follow. I nodded, the weight of the past year gradually lifting. Mara's betrayal, my parents' favoritism, the constant undercurrent of tension, all of it faded in the warmth of this new chapter. We had chosen trust over deceit, courage over fear, and love over family politics. As night fell, Theo returned inside, the glow of the restaurant's lights reflecting in his eyes. I stayed a moment longer, letting the gentle night breeze wrap around me, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges but also new victories. We had survived the storm. We had reclaimed our life. And this time we would face the world together, unbroken, unshaken, and stronger than ever. The morning air was crisp and smelled faintly of the lake, carrying the promise of a day untainted by last year's shadows. Theo awoke early, excitement in his eyes for the day ahead at Theo's lakeside kitchen. His laughter carried through the house as he dressed, a sound so pure that I paused to let it wash over me. This was the boy I had fought to protect, the boy who had endured betrayal but emerged with his spirit intact. Connie had already arrived, her usual calm energy filling the office as she prepared for the day. She glanced up when we entered. "Morning, Theo. Ready to take on some new responsibilities today?" "I am," Theo said firmly, adjusting his sleeves. His voice no longer carried hesitation. It was steady, determined, a subtle declaration that he was no longer afraid. I felt a swell of pride, my heart clenching at the sight of his quiet transformation. We started with inventory checks. Theo meticulously examined the pantry, noting supplies and suggesting small reorganizations for efficiency. He scribbled notes in his notebook, occasionally asking questions, absorbing every detail like a sponge. Connie watched him, shaking her head with a soft smile. "He's already thinking like a seasoned manager," she murmured. "Years of hiding his potential," I said under my breath, a bitter reminder of what Mara had tried to crush. But now Theo's confidence was tangible, radiating in every movement. He was growing not only into the manager I had hoped he could become, but also into a young man who understood the weight of responsibility and the importance of fairness. By mid-morning, the first wave of customers arrived. Theo greeted them warmly, handling seating arrangements and even offering menu recommendations. His interactions were thoughtful and personable, a testament to both his upbringing and innate kindness. I watched him with a mixture of admiration and relief. This was exactly where he belonged. As the lunch rush approached, Connie suggested a small leadership exercise. She had set up a few stations in the kitchen, assigning Theo to oversee each one. "You'll direct your team, make decisions, and handle any hiccups," she explained. Theo's eyes lit with a mixture of excitement and determination. The first test came almost immediately. One of the ovens malfunctioned, threatening to delay several orders. Theo assessed the situation calmly, delegating tasks with precision. He instructed one cook to finish the baking on the other oven while directing another to prepare alternative dishes. Within minutes, the kitchen had adjusted seamlessly. Connie's impressed smile mirrored my own astonishment. "You handled that beautifully," I whispered when the rush subsided. "You're learning fast," Theo grinned. "I just want to make sure everyone's happy. That's what running a restaurant is about, right?" I nodded, overwhelmed by both pride and relief. He had internalized lessons that often took years to learn: empathy, foresight, leadership. And yet, despite his growing competence, there remained an innocence in him, a clarity of purpose untouched by the shadows Mara and our parents had cast. By early afternoon, I took a brief moment to step outside, letting the sun warm my face. The lake shimmered in the distance, reflecting the clear sky. It was serene, almost a contrast to the intensity of the past year. I inhaled deeply, letting the peace settle in my chest. This was what victory felt like: not vengeance, not confrontation, but the quiet triumph of protecting what truly mattered. Theo joined me a moment later, skipping stones with precision. "Look, Mom," he said, laughing as the stones skipped across the water. "I'm getting better." "You've always had a steady hand," I replied, smiling. "It just took the right moment to show it." The day passed in a blur of controlled chaos: the lunch rush, inventory, and a few difficult customers. Each challenge was met with Theo's growing confidence and Connie's steady guidance. By late afternoon, we sat down for a brief break, sipping lemonade as the kitchen hummed around us. Connie leaned back, eyes thoughtful. "You know, Jillian, what you've built here isn't just a restaurant, it's a sanctuary. For Theo, for the staff, for anyone who believes in integrity and care." I nodded. I wanted that more than anything. Mara tried to take it all away, but this is ours now, Theo's legacy, not hers. Theo looked up from his glass, eyes sparkling. "I want to make it even better, Mom. I want people to come here and feel like they're part of something special." My chest tightened. His words carried weight, the kind of maturity that made my heart swell with both pride and a touch of disbelief. This was the boy who had once hidden in fear, now envisioning a future he had every right to shape. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, I stepped back inside to check on the evening service. Theo was in his element, guiding the staff, charming the customers, and overseeing the kitchen. It was a dance of efficiency and warmth, and he was the conductor. Connie watched from the sidelines, her nods of approval subtle but unmistakable. Later, as the last patrons left and the staff began closing duties, Theo returned to the office with a quiet triumph. "We did it," he said, voice filled with satisfaction. Everything ran smoothly. I hugged him, feeling the weight of the past year lift a little more. "You did it, kid. You ran the show, and you did it with grace." He smiled, a glow of accomplishment lighting his features. "Thanks, Mom. I couldn't have done it without you and Connie." That night, as the lake reflected the fading sunlight, I felt a profound sense of completion. Mara's betrayal and my parents' favoritism had tested us, but Theo's resilience and our shared dedication had prevailed. Theo's lakeside kitchen was no longer just a restaurant. It was a testament to courage, trust, and the unwavering bond between a mother and her son. We had faced storms, endured betrayal, and navigated the treacherous waters of family politics. And yet here we were, stronger, wiser, and united. Theo's laughter carried across the lake once more, a sound that promised not only survival but thriving, a beacon of hope for the days to come. As I closed the office for the night, I made a mental note to cherish these moments: the calm after the storm, the light in Theo's eyes, and the quiet victories that defined our new chapter. Mara's shadow might linger in memory, but it no longer held power over us. Theo and I had reclaimed our lives, and together we would continue to grow stronger with each passing day. The following morning dawned crisp and golden, the lake shimmering as if reflecting our renewed sense of purpose. Theo bounded into the kitchen, excitement radiating from him like sunlight. "Mom, can we test a new dessert recipe today?" he asked, eyes alight with curiosity. His enthusiasm was infectious, and I smiled, feeling the full weight of how far we had come. Connie was already setting up ingredients, her methodical movements a quiet anchor. "Let's see what you've got, Theo," she said, placing mixing bowls and utensils in front of him. "We'll follow your plan." Theo's hands moved with precision, combining ingredients thoughtfully while narrating each step. It wasn't just about baking, it was about understanding the process, taking responsibility for each action, and learning patience. I watched him, silently proud, realizing that the traumatic events of the past year had sharpened him, not broken him. He had learned resilience, courage, and the value of integrity. As we baked, our conversation wandered, laughter threading through our words. Theo asked about old recipes, the ones Mara had sneered at, the ones our family had once celebrated. He wanted to understand not just the process but the history. "I want to honor the restaurant's past," he said softly, "but I want to make it better too." My heart ached with pride. He wasn't just a boy anymore, he was a young man ready to carry a legacy. "You will, kid," I said, voice steady. "And I'll be here to guide you every step of the way." The aroma of baked pastries filled the air as Theo carefully slid trays into the oven. Connie observed him with admiration. "He's meticulous and he's learning to lead by example. That's rare at his age," she said. Lunch arrived with the usual hum of activity. Guests trickled in, each greeted warmly by Theo. His confidence was palpable now, his quiet strength commanding attention without arrogance. Every interaction reflected his growing maturity, and I couldn't help but beam at the sight. The boy who had once cowered in fear now moved through the room like a young man in command of his world. But the calm of the morning was suddenly broken by the arrival of a familiar car outside, the one Mara had driven. My stomach tightened, a reflexive warning that old tensions might resurface. I could see Theo stiffen as he noticed the car from the kitchen window. "Mom," he said, voice low, "it's Mara." I took a deep breath, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Don't worry, Theo. Whatever happens, we handle it together. This is your space, remember that." Mara stepped inside, her presence as calculated and sharp as ever. She carried herself with her usual confidence, but her eyes flickered at the sight of Theo. "I came to talk," she said smoothly, her voice a practiced melody. "I thought maybe we could reconcile." Theo's jaw tightened and he looked to me, silently asking for guidance. I shook my head slightly, giving him the courage to maintain his boundaries. "Mara," I said, voice calm but firm, "there's nothing to reconcile. What happened last year can't be undone with words alone." Her smile faltered just slightly, but she continued. "I just want to make amends for my son's behavior," and I cut her off. "Theo doesn't need apologies that come a year too late. He needs a safe environment, respect, and trust. That's what we're giving him here." Connie stepped forward, a quiet but powerful presence. "Theo's the reason this place exists now. Your presence isn't welcome, Mara, not today." Mara's eyes narrowed, a flicker of irritation crossing her face. "You can't keep me from my family," she said, voice tight. "I have rights here, my son. You don't have rights to harm anyone," I said sharply, cutting her off. "Your son hurt Theo and you stood by. That's not negotiable." For a moment the room was silent, the air thick with tension. Theo's confidence held strong, though his small hands clenched slightly at his sides. I could see the fire in his eyes, a reflection of his inner strength. He wasn't just my son, he was his own person now, capable of standing firm against the shadows of our past. Mara finally sighed, realizing that confrontation here would yield nothing. She glanced at the other guests and staff, noticing their subtle disapproval, then nodded curtly. Fine. But this isn't over, she said, her words more threat than promise. Without waiting for a response, she turned and left, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. As the door closed, the restaurant seemed to exhale a collective sigh. Theo looked up at me, relief washing over him. We did it, he said quietly. Yes, I replied, smiling. We did it together, and this is just the beginning. The rest of the afternoon passed in a calm rhythm. Theo led small kitchen projects, assisted guests, and even introduced a few new dessert ideas to Connie, who nodded approvingly at each. His confidence had matured into quiet leadership, a balance of patience and authority that impressed even me. Later, as the sun dipped low, painting the lake with shades of gold and amber, Theo and I stepped outside for a moment of reflection. The water shimmered, echoing the promise of new beginnings. Mom, he said softly, skipping another stone, thank you for everything. For trusting me, for protecting me. I held his small hand in mine, feeling a swell of pride and love. You don't need to thank me, Theo. I'll always protect you, guide you, and believe in you. That's what family is. Theo's smile was radiant, a beacon that cut through the lingering shadows of Mara's betrayal and our parents' favoritism. We were building something real now, trust, loyalty, and love, not just for the restaurant, but for our lives. As twilight descended, I reflected on the journey we had endured. Mara's betrayal, Tucker's aggression, my parents' blind favoritism, all had been trials to test the strength of our bond. And yet, through courage, determination, and unwavering love, we had emerged not broken but stronger, united. Theo wasn't just surviving, he was thriving, claiming his rightful place in a world we were creating together. The lake whispered softly as the evening settled in, the lights from Theo's lakeside kitchen gleaming like a promise of hope and growth. Theo stood beside me, eyes reflecting the shimmering water, ready to face whatever came next. Together, we were unstoppable. The path ahead would still hold challenges, legal letters, possible confrontations, and the ghosts of past betrayals. But for now, the restaurant hummed with life, Theo's laughter filled the air, and our bond had become an unshakable foundation. No matter what Mara tried, no matter what the past held, Theo's future was his, and I would stand by him, unwavering as his mother, mentor, and ally. This was more than a restaurant. It was a symbol of resilience, of reclaiming trust, and of building a life on one simple truth. Family isn't just about blood, it's about love, loyalty, and integrity. And as the stars appeared, twinkling above the calm lake, I whispered softly to Theo, "This is yours now, kid, and nothing, no one will ever take it away." The following week, life at Theo's lakeside kitchen settled into a rhythm that was both comforting and exhilarating. Theo was becoming more than just a helper in the kitchen. He was a leader in his own right. Connie and I watched him guide the staff with patience and precision, correcting mistakes without anger and inspiring creativity. Every guest who walked in felt the warmth of the new energy we had cultivated, an energy rooted not in obligation but in genuine care. One afternoon, as I was reviewing inventory in the office, Theo rushed in, his face glowing with excitement. "Mom." A regular customer just suggested we start weekend baking classes for kids. She said they'd love to learn from me. His enthusiasm was contagious, and I couldn't help but laugh. "That sounds amazing, Theo. What do you think, Connie?" Connie, leaning against the counter with a clipboard, nodded. "He's ready, absolutely. He knows the recipes, he knows the customers, and he's got a calm authority kids will respond to." Theo beamed, his earlier timidness now completely replaced by quiet confidence. I realized that all the struggles from the previous year, the fear, the betrayal, the bruises, and the confrontations, had forged him into someone far stronger than I could have imagined. He had learned resilience, the power of speaking up, and the importance of protecting what mattered. And most importantly, he had learned to trust himself. That evening, as the restaurant wound down, I stepped outside to the deck overlooking the lake. The reflection of the lights shimmered across the water, a mirror to the life we were building. Theo joined me, carrying a small notebook filled with his plans for the weekend classes. He leaned against the railing, eyes following the ripples on the water. "Mom," he said quietly, "do you think people like Mara will ever understand what they did wrong?" I shook my head, taking a deep breath. "Some people never do, Theo, but that's their choice. We can't control that. All we can do is control how we respond and how we protect ourselves and those we love." Theo nodded, digesting my words. There was a maturity in his gaze that made my chest swell with pride. He had become not just a son I loved, but a partner in building this new life, a young man who could face challenges with integrity and courage. Later that night, as we closed up the restaurant, I received a text from one of the staff members. Someone left a gift on the doorstep for Theo, it read. I opened the front door to find a small, neatly wrapped box with a card attached. My heart skipped a beat as I read the handwriting. It was Mara's. Theo came up beside me, eyes wide. Do you want me to open it? I asked softly. He shook his head. No, Mom, some things aren't worth opening. I don't need her approval or her gifts. I've got everything I need right here. He gestured at the restaurant, at the staff, and at me. I pulled him close, feeling the profound truth in his words. This was his life, his legacy, and no amount of late apologies or empty gestures could change that. Mara's attempts at reconciliation were irrelevant now. Theo's trust, his confidence, and his safe environment were built on actions, not words. The next morning, I sat with Theo and Connie, planning the first kids' baking class. Theo had designed the curriculum, choosing simple recipes that would teach both technique and patience. Connie and I offered guidance, but it was clear Theo had taken ownership. He explained each step to the volunteers and staff who were helping, his voice steady and commanding respect without ever raising in anger. As the first group of children arrived, the room buzzed with excitement. Theo greeted each one, introducing them to the ingredients and guiding them through the process. I watched him, amazed at how naturally he handled the responsibility. This was more than just teaching, it was shaping character, fostering creativity, and giving these kids confidence, just as he had built for himself. One little girl, hesitant and shy, struggled to roll out her dough. Theo knelt beside her, offering gentle encouragement. Take your time, it's okay if it's not perfect, that's how we learn, we try, we fail, and we try again. His words were soft but powerful, echoing lessons he had learned through hardship. Connie caught my eye and whispered, he's extraordinary. The way he's grown, it's beyond what I imagined. I nodded, pride swelling inside me. This was the true measure of our journey. Theo had transformed his pain into strength, his fear into confidence, and his experiences into empathy. By the end of the day, the kids had baked a variety of pastries, each proud of their creations. Theo led a small tasting, explaining flavors, techniques, and presentation with maturity beyond his years. The parents applauded, many commenting on how poised and thoughtful he had become. As we closed the restaurant that evening, Theo and I stood outside, the lake reflecting the twilight sky. Mom, he said, his voice quiet but certain, I think I'm ready to take on even more responsibility here. I want to learn everything, every detail, so someday this place can be mine completely. I smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. And you will, Theo, every step of the way I'll be right here. This is your future, and you've earned it with every choice, every act of courage, and every moment of integrity. He hugged me, a quiet, lasting embrace that spoke volumes about trust, love, and resilience. The lake reflected our silhouettes, the lights of Theo's lakeside kitchen twinkling like stars mirrored on water, a symbol of the legacy we were building together. Mara's shadow, the threats, and the past betrayals had no place here. Theo had chosen the path of strength, compassion, and wisdom. He had learned the power of standing firm, of protecting what mattered most, and of trusting in those who truly supported him. And now, with the restaurant thriving, the staff loyal, and his own skills blossoming, he was ready to face the future unshakable. As night fell, I whispered to him softly, You've come so far, kid. This is your life now, and nothing will take it from you. Theo's smile, calm and confident, reflected the promise of tomorrow. Together, we had transformed pain into progress, fear into courage, and betrayal into clarity. Theo's lakeside kitchen wasn't just a business. It was a testament to resilience, trust, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her son. The following morning, sunlight poured over the lake, scattering gold across the water. Theo was already at the restaurant, reviewing his notes for the upcoming weekend's baking classes. He had grown into his role with a quiet authority that left me both awed and reassured. Connie was already setting up the kitchen stations, her calm presence a perfect counterbalance to Theo's focused energy. I leaned against the doorway, taking a moment to absorb the scene. This was more than a restaurant, it was a sanctuary, a symbol of everything Theo and I had fought for over the past year. No betrayals, no manipulations, no parental favoritism could ever touch the life we were building here. It was ours entirely. Mom, Theo called, looking up from his notebook with a grin. Check this out, I designed a special signature pastry for the classes. I'm calling it the Lakeside Delight. Kids will decorate it themselves. I smiled, pride swelling in my chest. That's brilliant, Theo, you're creating more than food, you're creating memories. He nodded, eyes bright. Exactly, and maybe one day it'll be on the menu permanently so everyone gets a taste of the lake. Connie chuckled, glancing at me. Your son is thinking bigger than most adults I know. I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the morning sun. For a year, I had watched Theo recover, grow, and transform every ounce of fear into determination. He had reclaimed his confidence, his safety, and his future. And in doing so, he had taught me an invaluable lesson. The strength of family isn't measured by blood or legacy, it's measured by love, trust, and loyalty. Later that day, the first kids' baking class began. Theo took the lead, demonstrating each step with patience and clarity. He explained techniques, shared tips, and encouraged every child, particularly those who were shy or unsure. His empathy shone through, a reflection of the challenges he had faced and overcome. One little boy, hesitant to mix his dough, looked at Theo with nervous eyes. Theo knelt beside him, gently guiding his hands. "It's okay if it doesn't look perfect. The most important thing is that you try and have fun, that's how we learn." I watched from the doorway, my heart full. Theo had become not just a leader but a mentor. His courage, patience, and kindness radiated, touching everyone around him. Even the parents watching from the sidelines seemed captivated by his calm authority and gentle guidance. After the class ended, the children proudly displayed their pastries, each one smiling wide as they tasted their creations. Theo led the final tasting, explaining flavors and decorations, and receiving enthusiastic applause from both kids and parents alike. I caught Connie's eye and she gave me a small, approving nod. "He's incredible," she whispered. The day continued with a seamless flow, the kitchen alive with energy and laughter. Theo moved effortlessly between guiding the children, assisting the staff, and preparing his own culinary creations. Every action, every word demonstrated the confidence and skill he had developed over the past year. As evening approached, we closed the restaurant and stepped outside to the lake. The sky was painted with shades of orange and purple, reflecting off the calm water. Theo leaned against the railing, arms crossed, taking in the view. "Mom," he said quietly, "I think I'm ready to start planning for next year, bigger classes, maybe even weekend camps. I want more kids to learn and enjoy the kitchen like I do." I smiled, resting a hand on his shoulder. "You're doing something incredible, Theo. Not just running a restaurant, but creating a space where people feel safe, inspired, and cared for. That's rare." He looked up at me, eyes serious yet shining with confidence. "I know it's because of you, Mom. You've always protected me, guided me, and believed in me. I want to do the same for others." Tears threatened to spill, but I held them back. Instead, I hugged him tightly, feeling the weight of the past year, the fear, the betrayal, the struggle lifted. We had survived it all, stronger and more united than ever. As night fell, the restaurant lights reflected on the lake, casting a serene glow across the water. Theo and I sat quietly on the deck, sipping warm cider and listening to the gentle lapping of waves. The restaurant behind us was bustling with staff cleaning up, but out here it was peaceful. "This is just the beginning, Mom," Theo said softly. "I feel ready for whatever comes next." I nodded, my heart full of pride and hope. "And I'll be here every step of the way. Whatever challenges we face them together." Later, I checked my phone. Another message from Mara had arrived. This time, it was a simple apology, words written too late to mend what had been broken. I showed the message to Theo, and he glanced at it briefly before sliding the phone aside. "Some things aren't worth reopening," he said firmly. "We've got our own family here, that's all that matters." And he was right. The bond between Theo, Connie, and me was unbreakable. It was built on trust, love, and resilience, not on bloodlines or convenience. Mara, her son, and even my parents' favoritism could no longer reach us. We had forged our own path, and it was one of integrity and hope. As the stars emerged overhead, I took Theo's hand, feeling the solid, unwavering grip of a young man ready to inherit his legacy. "This is your world now, Theo," I whispered, "and you've earned every bit of it." He smiled, looking out at the lake and the restaurant behind us, the lights twinkling like stars reflected in water. "Thanks, Mom, for everything." I hugged him one last time that night, my heart lighter than it had been in years. The past year had been a storm, full of betrayal, fear, and uncertainty. But we had weathered it together, emerging stronger, wiser, and more united than ever. Theo's lakeside kitchen wasn't just a restaurant, it was a testament to courage, love, and the power of family chosen through trust and loyalty. With a final glance at the shimmering lake, I whispered softly, "We've built something real, Theo, something that no one can ever take away." He squeezed my hand, a quiet promise of the bright future ahead, and in that moment I knew it was true. Whatever storms might come, we had each other, and that was all we needed. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales of resilience, family, and courage.